Today I'm continuing my Stephen King short fiction project. This is the fourth installment of this series, which is a lot of rereads of the short story and novella collections of Stephen King. This one is Skeleton Crew. So in the short fiction project episodes, what I do is I give you an overview more than a review. I give you just kind of nuts and bolts, what the collection's all about. I tell you very briefly about each story, and then give you a summary of what I think about the collection as a whole, as well as what some of my favorite stories and my absolute favorite story from each collection may be. So, Skeleton Crew was published in 1985. The version that I have is by Putnam, and this is 512 pages. There are 22 total stories in this collection, which are consisting of 21 short stories and one novella. The novella is 114 pages, and the short stories range from 4 pages to 44 pages. So there's a lot of diversity in this collection, but it is mostly short fiction. Additionally, while most of this collection is horror, as I mentioned in a previous video, most of Stephen King's collections are mostly horror and magical realism. There's some other things in here. In fact, there's a science fiction tale, and there's a poem in here as well. So there is a good deal of diversity within Skeleton Crew. Now, for the overview, I have to don the glasses to be able to read my notes. The overview, by nature of any short fiction collection, if I tell you anything about it, that's a minor spoiler. So I just want to throw that out there. If you don't want to know anything about any of these stories, you can go ahead and skip to the next section, my summary of this collection as a whole. Because a lot of times in short fiction, sometimes the discovery process is meaningful. So if that's something that you care about, go ahead and skip this section. But I'm going to give you a sentence or two about each of these stories. The collection began with The Mist, which is the only novella in the collection. And it's a man and his son. They get stuck in a grocery store where this mysterious mist envelops the store. It's a good novella. It's not as good as I remembered, though. I thought it was like a 5-star read, and I didn't find it was quite that strong, but I think it's still a very, very good novella. Short stories begin after that. The rest of these are short stories. Here There Be Tigers. This is where a little boy goes to the bathroom at school and encounters a tiger. So typical, like, King exploring the phobias of youth. The Monkey is about a toy monkey from a man's youth inexplicably returning to his life. This one was freaking outstanding. Very, very scary. Cain Rose Up. This was a really short one. It's a 6-page story about a college student, and I'll just leave it at that. Didn't really like that one. Mrs. Todd's Shortcut. This is a woman who strives to find shortcuts driving through Maine. This one had such a strong narrative voice, and it was one of those just great works of magical realism. A really, really great story by King. The Jaunt. This is the science fiction tale, and it's a sci-fi story about teleportation with just a hell of an ending. Absolutely great one. The Wedding Gig is about a jazz musician in the 20s, gets a gig from a gangster, and it's pretty solid, kind of a period piece. Paranoid, A Chance. This is Stephen King writing poetry. Didn't really work for me. The Raft. Oh, this is a good one. This was about some college students. They swim out on this lake and they get stuck on this raft with this creature that's kind of keeping them there. It's King horror at its absolute finest. Word Processor of the Gods. This one is good as well. A man who's a writer receives a gift of a peculiar word processor, and this one evolved and was one of the stronger ones in the story as well. The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands. So what I like about this one most is this is set in the same setting as The Breathing Method, the novella in different seasons that I really love. And I love the setting of that club, and I wish he would write more there. But The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands it was a story set in that club. Beach World, another sci-fi one. A spacecraft crashes on a world that appears to be just a beach. Again, another solid one. Another one that made me think I wish King would start writing some sci-fi, because I think he could be really good at it. The Reaper's Image. This one's interesting. This is an antique mirror that kind of hides a secret, and it was a pretty good one at the very end. Like that one. One called Nona. This is a supernatural Bonnie and Clyde story and was just solid from beginning to end. Another one of his poems. This was for Owen, and it was written for his son. Didn't do much for me. King's poetry, at least in this collection, wasn't my favorite thing. Survivor type. This is where a surgeon is trapped on a deserted island and he'll do anything to survive. And this is the one that King calls his favorite short story he ever wrote, and it's one of mine as well. Uncle Otto's Truck might be a story about a haunted truck. This is a really good one. Just the tone and the way that he told the story in this one is outstanding. Morning Deliveries. This is the first one that he calls Milkman. This is Milkman #1, and this is a milkman making deliveries, and it's kind of weird, but wasn't one of the stronger ones in the collection, in my opinion. The second one was kind of the second Milkman tale. It was called Big Wheels, the tale of the laundry game. I thought it was a little more solid than the first one, and did have the milkman as a character in that one as well. Grandma, this one was great. This is typical horror, typical Stephen King perspective of a young boy, his grandmother, who is kind of a strange character. She's in the other room, she's dying. Very, very good one. The Ballad of the Flexible Bullet. This one's interesting. An editor's talking about a story about a writer, and he thinks there's something alive in the typewriter. It was a little long, but it was still a pretty solid story. And then the last one in the collection is called The Reach, and this is a story of an old woman that lives on an island, and this was the most literary of all the stories, and I really liked it. One of the things I love about all these collections is you see the diversity of King as an author, and he was kind of flexing his literary fiction muscles in that one. So as a whole, it's a very strong collection. It's not nearly as strong as Night Shift. That is probably going to be the gold standard when I get through reading all of these. But this did have some really outstanding stories. If I had to pick 5 favorites, I would pick The Monkey, The Jaunt, The Raft, Survivor Type, and Grandma would be my 5. And if I had to pick my favorite from this collection of books, I would say that Survivor Type is probably my favorite of all of them. So this series will continue a lot sooner. There was a big break between these last 2 episodes because the next one is 4 Past Midnight, and it's only 4 novellas. So since I read short fiction between the novels that I tend to read, short story collections take longer than novella collections. So probably in the next month, 2 months at the most, I'll have the next episode of this Stephen King short fiction project with 4 Past Midnight. So have you read Skeleton Crew? What did you think of it? Did you think it was strong? What was your favorite story in the collection? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter, Goodreads, and the Fireside Discord. I'd love to interact with you there. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.